Hello, my name is Mark Anthony Dubose Jr. I was born July 4th, 1986. I want to say thank you for tuning in, trying to figure out some more about your dog, because it's one thing I know. You're more than likely trying to figure out some more about some dogs because you're struggling with your dog. You're getting challenged with your dog. There's something I want to talk about today that it may not make sense instantly, but I want you to think about it. And that's the main thing that I'm always out here consistently doing with trying to get you to understand more about your dog, is think more about what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're seeing, as opposed to worrying about looking for the new fancy next technique. Because I'm telling you, that's more likely why you're struggling. And that next technique is more likely why what I want to talk about today, you're going to maybe put two and two together and just figure out why you're struggling so much. Because one thing I want to say is everything, not everything, but most everything in dog training today is going towards the concept of we got to give them treats to get them to sit, to get them to down, to get them to place, to get them to crate, to get them to do all these things. Where to me, that's still very confusing. Even though I went to a dog training school, I've spent months, I spent months and months in working with this stuff. And I've spent now years with helping people out with stuff. And I've really come to understand just what I am looking for with my own personal dogs. And not to try to say that I'm trying to force that on everybody, but I just noticed that most everybody wants the same thing that I do with my dogs. So when it came down to train the dog and using the treats, it started to get confusing to me. Because something I want to talk about today is the concept of why more than likely your dog doesn't know who you are, and how it started and how it happened and why it's still there and why the dog is very, very confused with you. Because there's one thing that I do know about us as human beings, and I'm not the only person. And if I am, anybody correct me, please. Just write it down. Just say, Mark, you the only one that's like this, and I don't know anything about that, but I'm not like that. But I'm going to be the first to raise my hand and say, I get impatient sometimes. I'm going to be the first to raise my hand and say, I get frustrated sometimes. I get irritated. I get annoyed. Annoyed? We got all these words that we like to throw out there. But a lot of this is the same thing at the end of the day. It's just mad, frustrated, irritated, just don't want to, have a sense, just a lack of motivation to want to get up and do. And when we're in all those states, our bodies are explaining the story, explaining a huge story. And that story is being translated to the dog. Now, there's nothing wrong with that story to translate to the dog, when a dog is just looking at us for who we are, and that's it. But now, once I add this treat involved, because this is one thing that I'm going to say, that, not to say that I've given up on, but I just don't care to do all the fancy tricks and do the dance routines and do all that stuff, because me personally, I don't have the care, the desire at all to do that. So I basically would say I gave up on it, because I realized it wasn't giving me the dog that I was looking for. I was looking for a dog to be able to do this right here. And it didn't require me to do all that stuff. So I kind of gave up on it because I'm just going to straight up say it like that and make it easy for everyone to understand. It's just too hard. It was just too complicated. It was just too much finagling, too much of me having to worry about giving the treat at the right second and then messing up and not messing up. It was just too much. And the one thing that I'm going to say is how I think that our dogs are, this is just, again, I don't know everything, but I'm just always trying to figure out, like, how have we got to the point that our dogs are, like, ruthless to us? Because mine just aren't. They do not, they're pushy, but if I say, hey, down, they down. If I, hey, stop, it stop. If I say go home, they go home. Whatever I say, they get done. And if they're too excited, I say we're finished and they're done. And I never get much pushback at all with that. If I have somebody come over and my dog is all on them, I say, hey, all done, we're finished. And they're, okay, well, we're not doing that anymore. I don't have any issues. So the one thing that I know that I don't do is the treat stuff. So I'm always trying to figure out, like, what's going on here? So when we do the first rep of sit, we say sit, give a treat, sit, give a treat, sit, give a treat. It's cool for the first 3 or 4 times, it's really neat. But then what do we do as human beings? We love to just, we want to go too far too fast. So we say sit, and then we want to, like, walk to the store and walk back and the dog still be there the 3rd time after you've done this. And then your dog's not, obviously it's not going to do it. It don't work that fast. It works pretty cool, but it don't work that fast. So you got to do very, very slow very slow stages to get the dog to understand that with only just the treat. So what starts to happen is you start to get frustrated. You say sit, give the treat, and your body is starting to get like, why aren't you getting it? Why aren't you doing this? Why isn't this happening? And your dog is watching you, and your dog is watching that treat. Now your dog is thinking, that state that your body is in is going to give me treats. The happy state that you're in is also going to give me treats. So your dog doesn't understand the differences between where I'm going to say is your yes and your no, because dogs don't know that verbally from our brain, from our mouths. They understand that from what our bodies are doing. So when you are frustrated and you're like down and you give the dog the treat, down, and then you start to get into that annoyed, down, and your dog is reading your body. Your dog is realizing it gets treats and thinks it's doing good when you're frustrated, irritated, mad, when you want to say no, when you want to do everything. Your dog is thinking that that's what's going on here. Especially when you say sit and he doesn't do it and you just withhold the treat and wait a half a second, then a dog sits and then you give it a treat. Your dog has no idea what no means from you. And that's where I'm going to say is I've realized how to have a really, really nice dog is to be able to effectively explain to the dog no. Because when you can effectively explain to your dog no, you're able to do so much. And no, not meaning that you have to add something extra to it, but just your presence, your body, your being, and just saying no. And this is another part that I think is very, very confusing with a lot of people, that they do not want to say no to the dog. They think that, I'm going to go down a very interesting speech for half a second real quick, but I have no choice but to say this because I was thinking about it today and I didn't want to talk about it, but I'm here right now and I got to talk about it right now. But the concept of saying no to your dog and the concept of using the words such as discipline and structure and everything in order and using words like that you think that by saying no and denying your dog something, your dog isn't going to like you anymore. And that's where I'm going to say to you, that's a lie, straight up. That's where you're having the most issues right now because you don't want to follow through with saying no to your dog. And again, saying no to your dog, when I say no to any of my dogs, and that one right there, I messed up because I was doing it the way that the dog training stuff wanted me to do it. You say no, you grab leash and you use the leash and you pull on that leash and you give him a tug. And then he was working on that prong collar, so I would say no out of my mouth. And half a second later, I'd come back and I'd yank that leash and he makes such a interesting yelp. He makes a yelp from that. And it never sat in me correctly, but I just did it because that's just what we do, right? We do what we do. When we're being taught how to do some things and by the people that know it all and they're doing this for hundreds of years, and that's just what we do. But I didn't like that because I would start to use that word the way I would use with my other dogs, and he would always flinch. And I couldn't stand that. So that's the part where I'm going to say, I get why people don't want to say no. Because you don't want your dog to ooh, what's going on? But that's not what I have with my other dogs and him now, finally. It's been, 2 years now, I've gotten away from that. And I can now effectively say no, and he's just like, okay, we just don't do that. And it's okay. But saying no to your dog is not going to give you a worse, I'm sorry, I got to say some crazy stuff right now. It's not going to give you a worse dog than where your worst dog already is right now. Your dog is already crazy. Your dog is already not listening. Your dog is already not doing what you're doing. You already don't have a good relationship. So just putting some structure in, putting some discipline in, putting some order, putting some new rules in, putting a new foundation in is going to make your dog do more than likely the opposite of where you are right now. And I want people to really just sit and think about that for a moment. Everything that you've been doing right now, you are having chaos. So if you do the opposite of everything you're doing right now, you more than likely will get the opposite results. So when I'm saying to do nothing with the dog, to stop and put the treats away, you're more than likely going to see a dog that is going to finally listen to you. If you stop petting your dog all day, and again, this isn't forever. And that's something that I just want to say right now. This isn't for, you are never give your dog a treat for the rest of its life. You are never going to pet your dog for the rest of its life. You're never going to not do this stuff. You're just not doing it now so that you can get your dog to respect you, to trust you, to know who you are, to be able to read you correctly, to be able to how to live with you, and how to be able to function without the term that's really good to use with this is walking on eggshells. Your dog doesn't know. It's like, what should I do now? What's going on now? And some people this is where I can't speak to every single person about every single thing and every single scenario in just a 130-minute video. I have to know more. But there's the whole side of it that some dogs are so arrogant and so cocky that they're just doing what they do. Then there's the other dogs on the whole other side that they're just tiptoeing like, I don't want to do nothing because it might make them mad and it might make this, it might bit this, it might that, or get down. It might do some crazy stuff. So the dog doesn't know what's going on. In most cases, the dog doesn't know because we're doing, Johnny, get down. Because we're doing some very, very conflicting things to the dogs. We're getting irritated and we're giving the dog a toy. This is another thing I'm going to say. You get irritated and the dog has a toy nearby, and what's the first thing you do? You throw the toy, irritated, throw the toy, irritated, throw the toy, irritated, play tug with the toy, irritated, frustrated, mad, pissed off, all these words that you are inside, and you're playing with the dog and you're giving these dogs these treats. This is why the dogs do not understand who we are, because they're looking at all this trickery that's happening here. This trickery of just be yourself, be you, represent you. And then your dog is going to understand you. And that's just one thing that I'm going to say is there's some people on this planet that are really, really, really good at doing certain techniques with all this stuff. But it doesn't mean that works for the mass majority of everybody. But the mass majority of everybody can do certain simple techniques to be able to get the simple success that you're actually looking for. To simply be able to say to your dog, this is what I want, just get it done, make it happen, and let's just move on to something else now. We're not gonna focus and sit in this for 5 hours. I'm not gonna sit here and tell my dogs to get down and have to, let me go and get the treats real quick so that they'll listen and go do this, get them primed to get them going, and then be able to get them to, I just wanna be able to move, just say, this is what I want, move on with my life and be done with it. And the dogs understand who I am. I don't need to bring anything else out. And that's where I think most people are struggling right now, because you're in a frustrated state giving a dog a treat. So your dog doesn't know how to read you. The number one way that dogs understand us as human beings. The dogs are no longer able to see that because we're doing things because, for one, we think we have to. And I want to be the one person to stand up here and just say to you, you do not need to do what majority of dog training stuff is telling you to do have a nice dog. You do not need majority of all of that. And if anything, most everything that any single dog trainer on this planet is going to say to you, you do not need to do to have a nice dog, a crazy nice dog. A dog that I could take anywhere and do anything with. A dog that I could just be interactive with anybody and go anywhere, make anything happen, that's not jumping all on everybody, that's just super calm in the house, that's not potting in the house. A nice dog. Just a super amazing nice dog. You do not need, I'm going to say more likely with 99% of people out here trying to tell you that you need to do to your dog to be able to have that. And the main thing I'm going to say with that is I just want to see the results. I want to see the proof. Because even the trainers that had the so-called really, really nice dogs, they're not actually able to do anything of real world stuff with them. Like me this weekend or this week, taking my daughter to the park, just having my dogs hanging out. She's running, playing, kids are running and playing. Dogs are out there screaming at me. There's balls going everywhere. There's a place there was people playing, they were playing volleyball. They were playing all kinds of stuff going on everywhere. My dog's just hanging out, just chilling. And everyone's looking at me like I'm some sort of freak of nature. And I'm like, this is what everybody wants. And I don't do anything that the dog training community tells me to do with these dogs right here, right now. I do nothing. That's what I keep saying over and over. I do nothing. I do nothing with these dogs. I don't give them no treats. I don't give them no prey. I don't even tell them good job for laying there and hanging out. We're hanging here. This is just what we're doing. And we just keep doing it over and over and over again. And things look really, really, really good. Really good. And that's the part that I just want to say and make sure that everyone just kind of just gets in your brain. More than likely, your dogs do not know who you are because of all the extra mess that you're doing, all the extra chaos that you're trying to put in there, all the extraness where your dogs are getting so confused. They're confused. They do not know what the heck is going on. It's very, very unfortunate. And that's why for me, I see what I see with a pushy dog because it doesn't know. It seems, this is the parts where I see, my Dalmatian today really put a lot of thought in me. It seems like she's on my list of agreeable to disagreeable. It seems like she's very disagreeable. Like she just wants to do whatever the heck she wants. She just wants to make whatever she wants to make happen. But in reality, the main thing that I'm going to say is some dogs need more structure and some dogs need just a crazy amount of freedom. Like this dog, crazy amount of freedom. I don't need to tell this dude, I don't do nothing. I literally don't do nothing with this dog. Like I don't even interact with him. I don't hang with him. I barely touch him. I barely say his name outside of telling him from barking at the neighbors and running and doing what he's doing. I don't do nothing. Some dogs that way. Then other dogs need, I'm going to use the word of more structure. Hey, Johnny, get down. They need more structure. They need more of you telling them what you're looking for them to do. And that's what's going to be able to guide them to understand what it is that we are looking for. Who cares what you want with my dogs? These are my dogs. Most people on this planet do not, in reality, want what I do with my dogs. Because with what I do with my dogs, I train them like they're athletes. But I'm the same way. I run marathons, ultra marathons. I run these. I'm training now for a 100-mile race. I do crazy stuff. That crazy stuff I do, my dogs also do with me. So my dogs are used to that. So if you take my dogs and think, oh, he's got nice dogs, and don't keep up with this extreme, like my Shepherd and my Dalmatian, going for, I mean, we're headed towards the 15 to 20 mile walking running range at this moment. And we're running. We're running 6:30, 6:15 mile pace. We're not just like trotting along. We're running. We're running 10 miles and 15 miles, and now we're headed to 20-mile runs. And they look really good in reality because I seriously put in a lot. But that's my structure that I put in, where someone else has a different structure that they need to do for your dog to get what you need. And I think that that's where you're seeing the pushiness, where because you're not putting in what your dog and you as a parent need to be able to do. And that's why for me, something simple that I help a lot of people out with. And this isn't for everybody, and this isn't for every scenario and every situation, but that's why I really like the down command. Because I noticed just like something with this dog here specific. I can't run him because he doesn't run. He he literally just, he gets tired in not even a mile, and he just starts to protest, and he gets even more pushier with me. So I had to do something to get all that energy out. So I can't run him. I can't really let him chase the animals too much because he's just not effective at it. So I was running at it. What the heck can I do with this dog? So for a lot of dogs, I just tell them to stay down, and I'm demanding to stay down. And this is what I want. I said down, and that's what I want. And that's just, I don't know what it is, but it drains a lot of energy out of a lot of dogs. This isn't just a solution for everybody, but for a lot of people in reality, it's a solution. If you don't know what to do with your dog, and your dog is getting really, really pushy, you need to tell your dog to do something. You can't just let it be free. And then through time, that pushiness starts to disappear because everything is just good to go. I don't need to tell him in a down anymore to be a good dog. I did that for probably a year, maybe 2 years now, that I've had to say, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, that's my expectations. And now he's very, very calm, and shoot, this dog is just, he's almost like dead looking in most places. He's just super chill. But I can't get him hyped. I still see who he is inside. He didn't just hit an age and he's just relaxing and hanging out. No, that's just not what dogs are. Dogs are way more energetic than us as humans. And that's why we need to do stuff for them so that they can be able to get that out. But that's something that it only happens when the dog knows who you are. And you need to be able to have very clear communication to that animal. And I think that's where we're struggling. I don't want to say no to my dog because it's going to hurt my dog's feelings. No, not saying no to your dog is what's hurting your dog's feelings. I don't want to not give my dog treats because then my dog's not going to like me. No, giving your dog treats is more than likely why your dog doesn't like you. It's using you. Giving your dog pets all day. If I don't do that, my dog's not going to know that I care about them. No, giving them pets all day, they're using you. And they don't respect you anything by doing all of that. They just don't. They just don't care. They don't care about you. And that's one thing that I'm going to say is I want to be able to say something to be able to get more people to think. And the simple thing that I want to say again right now, that hopefully I can say it, and for me, I know a lot of people also think and work the same way I do. You hear something the first time and it's just like, you heard it. But it was powerful that you heard. And then 3, 4, 8 months later, some of the stuff months later, I'm like, man, I know what's going on with that. That's hopefully what I could be able to get into most people's brains, because what I say up front right away is challenging. But I want to say this right here. Everything that you've been doing with your dog and you're not getting any sort of help, that must mean that what you're doing is not working. So why would you still continue to keep on trying to do it, or even find the next technique from someone else, from the next trainer, to be able to show you how to do it better, or hire the next trainer to be able to show you how to do the same stuff when they're all doing the same stuff and you're not getting any help with the things that you need help with? Why are we still doing those same things? So that must mean that everything that you're doing is going against what it is that you should be doing to be able to get what it is you're looking for. So if you're if you got a person coming into you telling you, give the dog a treat and pet the dog, and the dog is going to respond and do this sit, but yet you see that your dog is getting more ruly, maybe you should just take those out and do something different and get the heck away from that, and then see what's going to happen. And just one thing that I want to say is just try it out for some time. You know, what's the worst that could happen with some advice from a crazy looking farming man? I consider myself a farmer at this point. I'm digging deep. I had to let this boy out because I got baby chicks about to be hatching next week. So I'm being a whole different serious game here real soon. So I'm a farming man, and everyone making fun of me about raising chickens and being a chicken farmer. And I don't know a single person in my life that didn't have some side funny little comment about that. I just don't care. But to take some weird advice from me, a weird farming man with an afro, I'm even weirder with that. With all my dogs, all my chickens, all my cows, and I got a donkey over there somewhere, and a weird farmer. The one thing that I can say to you is try to do nothing and see what happens. What's the worst thing that could happen? Nothing. So if it didn't work out, if nothing happened, if nothing got better, if nothing got worse, then, you know, that weird guy, his advice is absolutely worthless. It was pointless. It did nothing for me. It didn't make anything happen. But why not just try that out as opposed to getting on this YouTube and looking at a trainer that looks super fancy. He's got really nice clothes on. He's got a beautiful looking haircut. He's got a nice dog with him all the time. Every time he's walking with this dog is loose leash walking with him. I mean, this stuff is easy to do for someone that knows what they're doing. And he's walking and he's telling you how to get this dog to be able to do this same heel and be able to look so good, and telling you to try this technique and try this technique and put this collar on the dog and use this treat and do this and do this. And you're going from trainer to trainer, and you're using all of their methods, and you're not getting anywhere. And you're actually realizing that one of the trainers you use, the dog is getting way worse and not better, and to the point that it's dangerous and this, and you're not getting anywhere. I don't want to say you, but in reality, yeah, you would keep trying those methods out and seeing it not get any better. As opposed to just, I want to say to you, do nothing and do nothing and do nothing. And stop thinking that there's some magical thing out here that's going to be able to make everything better for you. As opposed to just doing nothing is going to make things better for you. I know it's so simple, but the simple things are, in reality on this planet, are very, very hard to do. Because that means you need to break the habits that you have of like this rampage of I got instead just chill, relax, calm down. And just even like, in a way, I want to say to you is make your life easier, man. Why think that you got to look up that next treat and get on Chewy and order all this stuff up and think that it's going to get on these toy boxes and get all this? This is what's going to get. It's going to save you time and money, for one. It's going to save you energy and time for just coming home and just hanging out with your dog and looking at him. Walk in the door, ignore the dog, do nothing to it until it's calm. When it's calm, look at it, hey, good boy, and then just move on with your day and keep doing what you're doing. And allow the dog to just hang around and be around. And allow the dog to just start to just smell you, recognize you, see you calm. See you not in this like, oh, why are you this, just why aren't you doing what I want? I've been doing all this and we got to do this training. So just do nothing. Just do nothing. And see what starts to happen. Because in most cases, you're going to get a little dog that's going to want to jump on you a little more at first. But the dog's not going to get to the point that it's going to want to bite you. It's not going to want to start to just get crazy. It's not going to start to snarl at you. It's not going to start to do anything crazy like that. It's just going to, the one thing that I do know that most all dogs do when you stop petting them is they start jumping on you and they start pushing you more. Like, hey, touch me. Hey, touch me. Hey, touch. Hey, I'm here. Hey. And you just like, no, I'm not doing that. And it usually takes minutes for the dog to just literally, they're so smart because they realize there's something new going on here. Dude, why aren't you moving the way you used to move? The dog usually just gets at a little bit of a distance, it sits down and it stares at you. And it just sits there. And you call it and it comes instantly to you. And you're like, good job. And you ignore it again. And then he's like, it'll go at a distance, it'll lay down, it'll calm down, it'll just relax. Because you're not feeding into it. So that's the main thing is you're doing something different here. And that difference is going to make the dog do something different, as opposed to doing the same stuff. This is where, for me, I have a problem with what I see the majority of what's being worked on today. Is because majority of people are not getting help. Some are. There's always that 10% that's like, I gave my dog treats and I could do this, and it used to try to bite my face off and it's good to go now. You know, that's great. There's always those stories out there. But the majority of all the stories out there are not that way. Or, hey, I was giving my dog treats and now my dog's biting my hand. It bit my kid. It did this. It's just jumping all over people. It's digging more. It's chewing up the whole house more. And then same thing with that, with using too much leash. The dog does really good when I got a leash on him. And he's got a prong collar on, and he's got an e-collar on. He does really good. But as soon as I take that off, the dog is just crazy. It's absolutely insane. That's the majority. And how the heck do we get away from stuff like that? And that's being able to allow the dog to know who you are, for all that you represent. And that starts by doing nothing with the dog and just hanging out with the dog. And understanding that there's going to be times that you have to get the dog to know what you're all about and be able to effectively say no to the dog. And again, effectively saying no to the dog is me just looking at the dog and saying, no, knock that off. Stop that. Because the energy out of your body is stating something. But if you're constantly saying no, and this is where things get messed up. You have treat in your hand and you give him treat, sit, and then you're like, no, you didn't sit right. So the dog is seeing that energy out of you. And the dog sees treat in your hand and it sees that powerful energy that we have as a human being. With that, our body language is powerful when we say no to somebody. It's powerful, man. It's powerful. And we can, as human can see this stuff from a distance. We know when somebody's saying no to us without nothing. It's powerful. But when you have treat in hand, you say no. And your dog sees that. Your dog's like, that's yes. And then when it sits, you give it treat instantly. And then you do that 5 or 6 times. And that's the concept of how we clicker train a dog, right? And if you don't understand how to do that, you click, feed, click, feed, click, feed, click, feed to get them primed on it. So what you're doing here is no, feed, no, feed, no, feed. Your dog is like, oh, shucks. If he says no, I'm going to get a treat. So that means I'm doing what's right. So you need to switch that all up. You need to get a whole new game plan going on here with getting a dog to understand what you are and what you represent, as opposed to what this extra stuff is that's going on. And that's where I think that most people are getting into complications right now, because a dog doesn't know how to read you. It's reading you through what you do, as opposed to just who you are. And that's something that I would want some more people to just really think about. Think about that concept of getting frustrated and giving your dog a treat. Getting frustrated and giving your dog a toy. Getting frustrated and petting your dog. When you're doing that, you're telling the dog the opposite information that you want to tell that dog. And that's why I'm going to say to you, the more that you do nothing, the more that the dog is going to finally be able to read you correctly. And when it can read you correctly, I'm telling you, that is what makes a nice dog. When your dog can see you, when you get frustrated, and it says, oh, okay, we're good. Everything's fine now. I'm gonna back down. When your dog can see you when you're in a happy state and realizing it's not some like, woohoo, we're going crazy, we're having fun. No, it's just let's hang out, man. Let's get some pets, let's chill, and we're just here. Your dog's gonna finally be able to get into that and see that. And that's another thing that I could talk about for days and hours of how we're playing and how we're training these dogs. Sit, oh yeah, good boy. Oh yeah, sit, good boy, and going like that. Your dog is getting just boom, I'm eyes blown out, just going crazy, just raging, just insane. And that's why you can't get your dog to calm down. Because you stand up and move and your dog is like, oh my goodness, it's just the greatest of the greatest. It's the most wildest thing. It's not. Not everything is that way. And that's what I can say is how this dog, my Border Collie, is. He's on board with that because when I get up, because he works off my frustration. Because I get frustrated when an animal is not where it needed to be. The first 3 years that I was working with them. So I'd be out there like trying to get this dang goat. And these goats, I don't know what it is, man. These goats really, really got me. And I'm like, let's go get these goats. And this dog is like, let's go get these goats. So he understood that from me. But then when I'm in a happy stance, he kind of looks at me like, what the heck's going on here? Like, this is weird. This is very, very strange. But when I get a little hostile, this dude is like, let's go to work, man. Let's go make something happen. So he's primed the same way that majority of people's dogs are primed. That you get irritated and you're saying no, and he's like, let's go do something. But for me, understanding more about dogs and more understanding how to continue to keep on working with them, it's stuff that I'm not even trying to get out of him because I still get frustrated if an animal is gone and I need him to still work that way. But at the same time, I don't want him to be scared of me in that stance. But as far as a pet dog that's hanging out in your house, if you stand up and you're frustrated and you say no, your dog should be like, oh, okay, I'll come over here. Johnny, get down. I'm coming over here. Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna lay here instead. That's what your dog should do when you get to the point of, get down. When you get to the point that you're saying to the dog, no, the dog should like, oh, all right, let's stop that. But that's not what majority of people have. You say no to your dog actually amplifies. It just amps up. So just take like all steps back and start with doing nothing. And I'm telling you, you're gonna watch your dog start to get better and better. The more that you are not praising them, the more that you are not. And again, this isn't forever. This is to get your dog to understand that there's new relationship going on here. That I respect the fact that you need what you need, but you're not gonna be just pushing me to get what you need. You gotta ask me for it, and I'm gonna ask you, we're gonna ask, and we're gonna have a talk back and forth so that we can understand each other. You're not just gonna start demanding and start forcing from me. And that's where we need to get to the dogs. So that's why I say just stop touching the dogs, stop giving them treats, stop playing with them with toys, and stop that for a little bit. Stop it, and watch. Just watch how your dog is going to start to change into like, what you want, man? What's going on? What are we gonna do next? Because the dog is taking a leadership position of, let's play fetch, you better go get the treats, you better this, you better pet me, you better this, and the dogs can't handle that. So once you stop all that, the dog's gonna say, well, where are we going now? What are we gonna do now? And then that's where you're gonna start to have fun. Because now you can say, okay, well now we're gonna go over here and do this. And the dog's like, okay, let's go do that. And it's gonna start to follow you. The way that dogs are intended to do is follow us as humans. They're not to lead. And that's why most of us are struggling, because your dog is leading you. And that's, in my opinion, a dangerous thing. Thank you. That guy just backfired.